all comes back to that simple concept of what's the true meaning of life. Many cultures, theocracies, mythologies across the world and throughout history have recognized the concept of a one-hearted way of being and a two-hearted way of being. When I was about 8 years old, my mum had met my now stepdad, Kilana Richard Two Bears, and he had brought the teachings from his First Nations elders into my life. Growing up, I had ceremony, I had the sweat lodge, and I had a cultural significance that my stepdad had taught me. One of those things was a one-hearted way of being and a two-hearted way of being. I actually really wanted to make a podcast about this topic because Bear especially is incredibly well versed on it. He understands it. It's what his elders had taught him. But unfortunately, it's clearly a little bit difficult because we live in total different cities, but it's something that I really want to do. Maybe at another time, perhaps. So let's get cracking as to what one-hearted and two-hearted ways of being are. So the Hopi prophecies also recognize this one and two-hearted way of being as two different timelines. The one-hearted people are the kinds of people who are not set out to exploit the planet, to exploit others, and to exploit themselves. The one-hearted people are there to better their environments, to take responsibility for themselves, to take responsibility for the planet, for their communities. The one-hearted people are the kinds of people who want to give to others, to nurture others, and to help others come into their own power. The one-hearted people are the kinds of people who are connected to the earth. They realize that they are connected to all things and the oneness of themselves, their environments, and the universe. Now, the two-hearted people, on the other hand, are the kinds of people who don't care who they step on in order to gain something from them, such as monetary gain, power. In fact, it's not even about money. It's essentially about power, about having power over other things. It's about having power despite how you hurt others, how you hurt the environment, how you hurt the collective understanding of being one-hearted. Two-hearted people understand that one-hearted people, without them knowing that they're one-hearted, can very, very easily be infiltrated, corrupted, and manipulated, and they seek to manipulate one-hearted people. Two-hearted people want to have control over anything that they can get their hands on, no matter the cost. Now, I can't speak too further on the Hopi prophecies because I can only reference certain points to what I personally understand about what being one and two-hearted means. I'm sure you guys have a fair idea and a fair concept of what you think may be two-hearted and one-hearted ways of being. As I mentioned at the start of the video, we can look at different theocracies, cultures, and mythologies to understand what one and two-hearted ways of being look like. For instance, if we take Taoism, for example, they often talk a lot about not having attachment to certain things, to understand that the empowerment comes from within yourself and that those certain material things are what's going to corrupt you in the end. Taoism is about balancing oneself and understanding that you can't use anything else from your environment in order to find contentment. If we look at different faiths, for example, we see this common understanding of following the word of God, of Allah, of Creator. That fundamental message being that of doing good, being good, to not harm others, to act righteously, to be there for the vulnerable. There is this common understanding across the world, at least historically, of being that kind of person who takes responsibility for themselves, for their environment, and for their communities. It's about understanding that we don't have any fundamental right to the planet, that the planet is not ours, but rather that we belong to the planet, that we belong to God, that we belong to whatever our belief system is. I follow this Navajo elder, his name's Wally, on YouTube. He often talks about how vital the messages from his elders are, that those messages are incredibly important to be able to be taught to the future generations. One of the videos in particular that I had come across, he was talking about how his elders were saying about peace and competence being in front of you, peace and competence being behind you, peace and competence being above you, and peace and competence being below you. And Wally had said to his elders, well, what about the left and the right? And his elders told him off, slapped him on the wrist, and they said, you can't veer off to the left and the right because you're going to lose your way. You will become lost. And that message is so important because what is it that truly matters? What matters is the one-hearted way of being. It's about remembering who we are as human beings on this planet, who we want to be. There may be a few of you who value nihilism. And nihilism in itself, objectively, it's not a bad thing. It's just a way of being. The problem with being nihilistic is that what's the true meaning of existing? Being nihilistic means there's no fundamental meaning of existing, that you're just floating around on a rock and you're here by coincidence. But what is it about meaning in particular that sets us on a certain path of goodness or one-heartedness? Of course, with nihilism, you can certainly argue you can do good things in the world without having a certain belief system in order to persuade you or encourage you to do those good things. And I do understand from that perspective. However, also being nihilistic means there's no meaning in life. What is your reason for going about your life? Meaning is what sets us on a certain path and gives us a certain mission in life to be able to accomplish what we need to. Meaning is what protects us from outside infiltration. Meaning is what protects us from manipulation. And this is what I could gather from Wally's talk about what if I veer off to the left and the right, and the elders saying you can't do that because you will lose your way. Because the true meaning for Wally and through the teachings of the Navajo was that the path ahead of you is the path of the one-hearted way of being. Without meaning, we can be easily corrupted, and this is something that the two-hearted people understand. And when it comes to going about your life, whether you're nihilistic, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're whatever belief system that you have, you look through life within two different lenses. One of those lenses being the one-hearted way of being, and the other lens being the two-hearted way of being. And those are two very separate ways. There is a very simple concept as to know what lens that you're looking through, because all you need to do is look at certain aspects in society and your environment and your communities and how you look at yourself. Firstly, I want to explore cultural influence, because culture is what cultivates us. It's what cultivates our communities. It's what cultivates who we are as individuals. We can be so easily influenced by what's going on in our culture. We look to see who is influencing our culture. We look at celebrities, we look at artists, we look at the people who are talked a lot about in our media and in our societies. So who are these people? So let's just take a quick look at Hollywood and about who our musicians are. What are you seeing on Instagram? What are people trying to push? Do we get the messages of peace and love and connection with others, such as, hey, let's just look at Bob Marley for a minute. I've been thinking about Bob Marley all morning, actually, when I'm coming to think of one versus two-hearted. And Bob would often reference in his lyrics about being a one-hearted person. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. In his song, Redemption Song, he talks about liberating yourself from mental slavery, about liberating yourself from the two-hearted way of being. That has no power over you because you and yourself understand the concept of being one-hearted. But we can also look at other celebrities. Let's just take, for instance, Kylie Jenner here. And this is no offense to Kylie Jenner as a person, but rather the energy and the message that she sends to her fans. It's the message of needing the next big thing, about the next coolest car to drive, or the next generation of technology, or it's trying to adhere to beauty standards, or these other very materialistic aspects that our society pushes on all of us. In fact, take a look at what our major corporations push on us in general. It's all about exploiting us, exploiting who we are as emotional individuals in order to gain something from us. Think about narratives which get pushed. Why are they pushing certain narratives? And how do you feel inside when those narratives get pushed? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you indifferent? And how are these corporations and popular celebrities sending out their message? It's via technology, isn't it? So the next one is, how are we using technology? Technology in and itself isn't an evil aspect, but it's just how you use it. It's like with anything, really. As individuals, we have a responsibility to either use certain things in life in a good or a bad way. But let's just take a look at social media. From what I can see, people are really quick to become keyboard warriors, for instance, when they're online. There's a lot of divisiveness. There's a lot of information that's coming through and exiting. Being in the age of information via technology has been a concept of pushing either a one-hearted or two-hearted narrative. How do you feel, again, after you use this kind of technology? I think that can tell you a lot, how you feel afterwards. Do you feel liberated, or do you feel meh or depressed? And with this technology, especially like social media for existence, it's the town square right now of how we socially operate. Social issues have come to the forefront of this kind of technology. There's a lot of divisiveness happening within our societies. These social issues are being pushed by the media, by corporations, by different entities within our culture to drive certain narratives. And it's like, well, okay, which side of the fence do you sit on? And it's that concept in and itself. Which side of the fence do you sit on? Is how you're going about engaging in these social issues doing more harm than good? Is how you go about engaging in these social issues making a difference to a fundamental understanding of what it means to be united as a people? Next, we can look at our communities. Are we seeking to help people, to empower people, and to give to others? Or are we seeking to take, to not really care about anything? When we go about wanting to better ourselves within our communities, when we want to be able to succeed, do we do so with the thought of others or just ourselves? What is your mission within your communities? What is it that you're setting out to achieve? And then we have the individual self. And this is probably the most important aspect of this whole kind of idea between one-hearted and two-hearted, is that it all comes back to the self. The two-hearted people at the top of the pyramid can certainly make large impacts on the earth, on people, and on the fundamental idea of being one-hearted. But what it really comes down to is you. It's self-responsibility. It's about liberating yourself from mental slavery, as again, referencing Bob Marley. He's been in my head all day. Do you understand the concept of being a one-hearted and two-hearted person within yourself? Going back to Taoism, being balanced in oneself, disassociating with material aspects, understanding that you have yourself and you are the one in control of how you respond to the environment, how you respond to these kinds of two-hearted ways that are happening all around you. That you're the one responsible for understanding that you can pull yourself out of that. It's about understanding that the things around you can't control, but you can control how you respond to them. It's also about how you treat yourself. Do you forgive yourself for being a flawed human being? Or do you beat yourself up for it? It's about understanding that you can make a choice in your life to go about your life with what you value. This, of course, is where the saying, be the change you wish to see in the world, comes from. It all comes back to self-responsibility. That is the most fundamental, important thing about being one-hearted or two-hearted, or about rather seeing the difference between one and two-hearted. It'll be an ongoing challenge. It'll constantly test you. And this challenge comes from within ourselves. We are the only ones who can liberate ourselves from the bad things that happen in this planet. And how do we do this? How do we come to the understanding of how to liberate ourselves or what we should be doing with our lives? It all comes back to that simple concept of what's the true meaning of life. I'll let you ponder on that one because everyone has their own beliefs and different ideas of what that looks like. For me, that personally looks like connection to the earth, connection to all things, and this understanding of being one-hearted. I hope you liked this video, guys. I hope you got something from it that it made you think. Do you look through a one-hearted lens or a two-hearted lens? Let me know. Now, I'm sure like most of you are going to be looking through the one-hearted lens because I know you guys are fantastic people with great morals, and I know you wouldn't hurt a fly. But again, it's a constant challenge that we go through every single day to keep ourselves on that path of being one-hearted, and that it all comes back to us. For now, I hope you guys have a really good day, night, morning, evening, whenever you are in the world, and I'll see you guys all again for the next video. Bye-bye.